Does Dustin Poirier really have a chance of beating Islam Makhachev at UFC 302? I think a lot of people are going to be picking Islam Makhachev going into this fight, rightfully so, right? Rightfully so. And I think that the people that are picking Dustin Poirier, because I have seen people say that Dustin Poirier is going to be able to pull the upset at UFC 302, I think they believe that Dustin Poirier can win, but I don't actually believe that they believe that he will win the fight. There's a difference there. Can and will. A lot of people think that Dustin Poirier can beat Islam Makhachev, but most of them, I would say like 98% of them believe that Dustin Poirier will not win this fight. And why is that the case? Is it because we don't think Dustin Poirier is that good of a fighter? No. I think the reason why a lot of us think that Dustin Poirier is not going to beat Islam Makhachev is because we think that Islam Makhachev is just a nightmare of a matchup for Dustin Poirier. And I'm gonna be honest, I believe that. I think that Dustin Poirier truly has no chance besides a puncher's chance of beating Islam Makhachev. And I think some of you guys are gonna be mad in the comments saying, "Oh man, how can you count out Dustin Poirier, paid in full? Pressure makes diamonds, all this shit." And guys, I'm a fan of Dustin Poirier. I mean, how can you not be a fan of Dustin Poirier? The guy has given us so many amazing fights, so many amazing, moments in the cage. And I like Dustin Poirier. I really do. But I'm going to be honest with you guys. He truly has no chance against Islam Makhachev. And the reason why he doesn't have a chance against Islam Makhachev is because Islam Makhachev is just a nightmare of a matchup, man. The guy has striking, he has grappling. And the one thing that I've noticed in Dustin Poirier's fights is that he likes to fight with his back up against the fence. And that's the worst thing you can do against Islam Makhachev. And the thing is that Dustin Poirier, he has great boxing, he has good counter striking, but that kind of counter striking is not going to work against Islam Makhachev. To beat Islam Makhachev, you have to be the one moving forward. You have to be the one pressuring. We saw in the fight against Volkanovski, the first fight, of course, that Volkanovski had success against Islam Makhachev when he was the one starting the exchanges, when he was the one moving Islam Makhachev backwards. And if Dustin Poirier is going to wait to counter strike against Islam Makhachev, it's not going to work, man. Islam is just way too defensively sound. We've seen that he's improved his striking a lot. I mean, before the Volkanovski fight, before the Charles Oliveira fight, I think we were kind of underestimating Islam Makhachev's striking just because he wouldn't really go to his striking. Obviously, he's mostly a grappler, a sambo wrestler. So we know that he has great striking, right? And obviously, there's a chance that Islam Makhachev has just fallen in love with his hands and he decides to brawl it out with Dustin Poirier, which does open up the opportunity for Dustin Poirier to catch him in one of these exchanges. And what I will say, because I think what a lot of people are going to do is that they're going to compare the Khabib Nurmagomedov Poirier fight and say, look how he did against Khabib, and then say that because Dustin did bad against Khabib, that therefore it's going to be the same kind of matchup against Islam Makhachev. And even though that could be true in a sense where Islam Makhachev, if he gets him to the ground, Dustin Poirier is going to be in a lot of trouble, I think it's a different fight as well. And I think also that one of the things that is very underrated about Khabib is his chin. And Dustin Poirier was able to capitalize, land a lot of shots on Khabib, I believe, in that second round. And Khabib just ate them, man. He just ate them and kept moving forward and was able to pressure Dustin Poirier and gas him out with the wrestling. And I think that if Dustin Poirier is able to land those type of combinations on Islam Makhachev, I could see Islam Makhachev getting chin, because I don't think his chin is as good as Khabib. So there is a chance there. I'm not those type of people that think that Islam Makhachev is just the perfect fighter. Obviously, he's a very well-rounded fighter. He's the number one pound-for-pound fighter in the world for a reason. But that doesn't mean that he doesn't have any weaknesses. I think Volkanovski showed that there's ways to beat Islam. Even though I think that Islam beat Volkanovski in that first fight, I think Volkanovski showed that there's ways that you could beat this guy on the feet with pressure. But we saw that Islam is also very well-rounded. He's very good in the clinch. He's going to beat Dustin Poirier in the clinch, man. He's going to be landing elbows. He's going to be landing knees to the body. And he's going to be taking down Dustin Poirier. And when he takes him down, I just don't see Islam Makhachev having the same level of cardio that Benoit Saint-Denis had. Look, in my prediction between Benoit Saint-Denis and Dustin Poirier, one of the things I mentioned, even though I did pick Benoit Saint-Denis to win that fight, one of the things I mentioned, look, if they get into a brawl, Dustin Poirier is going to win that fight. Why? Because Dustin Poirier, that's what he loves. That's where he thrives. You get into a striking, close quarter combat exchange against Dustin Poirier, you're going to lose that fight. He showed us time and time again that if you just stand in front of Dustin Poirier and you try to outbox him, you're going to lose that fight. And I think that Islam Makhachev is smart enough to know that I'm not going to try to outbox that guy. And I even think that from range, Islam Makhachev could have a lot of success with the low kicks, with the head kicks, with the body kicks. They're both southpaw. So it's not like Islam Makhachev doesn't have any chance on the feet. He could absolutely knock out Dustin Poirier. And because of that, because Islam Makhachev is so well-rounded in the striking, because he's so good with the grappling, if he wants to win this fight easy, he could just take Dustin Poirier down, control him, gas him out. We've seen Dustin Poirier gas in grappling exchanges. Now, the difference is, because people are going to point to the Benoit Saint Denis fight, is that I was surprised by how fast Benoit Saint Denis gassed against Dustin Poirier. And I know part of that had to do with the fact that he was going into the fight with a staph infection. And some of you guys are going to say cope, right? But that's a reality. If you're going into a fight with a staph infection, not 100%, your cardio is going to be ass. And that's the way it looked like in that fight, because Benoit Saint Denis had a lot of success in that first round. He was able to control Dustin Poirier on the ground. It wasn't like he was close to finishing Dustin Poirier whatsoever. We saw Dustin Poirier was shooting for the ghillie and he was missing, which is something he can't do against Islam Makhachev. If Dustin really wants to give himself a chance of beating Islam Makhachev, he cannot do that kind of bullshit against Islam. It's just not going to work. Those guys are so well-rounded and so smart on the ground. You're not going to be able to catch him on with a ghillie. It's just not going to happen. Maybe it happens. Dustin Poirier pulls the craziest move and he just submits Islam Makhachev. But I'm going to be honest, guys. There's like a 1% chance of that happening. And like I said, if Dustin Poirier really wants to beat Islam Makhachev, he needs to pressure him on the feet. He needs to let go of his hands and he needs to take risk. I mean, that's the only way I could put it. You have to take risk, because if you play the defensive mindset of your back up against the fence, trying to counter-strike Islam Makhachev, it's just not going to work. That is why I truly believe that Dustin Poirier really has no chance of beating Islam Makhachev. And Islam Makhachev is very defensively sound. I do think that his chin is not as good as Khabib's, and I could see that if Islam Makhachev maybe gets a bit too confident with his hands, that Dustin Poirier could capitalize. But when we think about the grappling, when we think about the striking, when we think about the cardio, I think I give most of those advantages to Islam Makhachev. I think at range, Islam Makhachev has an advantage over Dustin Poirier with the leg kicks, with his hands. We've seen that he's very fast. Like I said, Volkanovski had success when he was the one pressuring Islam Makhachev. When Islam Makhachev is the one on the front foot pressuring you, that's where you're in trouble. That's when he lands knees. That's when he lands his left hand. That's when he lets go. But if you're not able to pressure Islam Makhachev and get him back up against the fence or make him be defensive, you're not going to beat him. We saw that against Charles Oliveira. We saw that against Alexander Volkanovski. Obviously, I don't really count the second fight because it was short notice, but we saw that he obviously has some pop in his kicks and he could absolutely knock you out as well. So I think Dustin Poirier just has way too many factors against him to beat Islam Makhachev. And I'm not even trying to be a hater, guys. Look, if Dustin Poirier pulls the upset and the night of the fight, I'm going to be rooting for Dustin, man. I'm going to be rooting for Poirier to somehow beat Islam Makhachev. But if I'm being honest with you guys, I truly believe that Dustin Poirier has no chance of beating Islam Makhachev. However, there is a bit of hope. Dustin Poirier does have the secret juice. And what is this secret juice? Well, every UFC champion that shared a fight card with Paulo Costa lost their title. UFC 298, Paulo Costa versus Robert Whittaker. Volkanovski lost to Ilia Topuria. UFC 278, when Paulo Costa fought Luke Rockhold, Usman lost to Leon Edwards. At UFC 241, DC lost to Stipe. UFC 226, Stipe lost to DC. UFC 217, Bisping, Garbrandt, and Joanna all lost their title. At UFC 212, Jose Aldo lost to Max Holloway. All of these cards are cards that Paulo Costa has been in. So maybe the secret juice could help Dustin Poirier win this fight against Islam Makhachev. But it's going to take that kind of mysticism and faith for Dustin Poirier to truly win this fight, because when we look at the skill set, when we look at the matchup, when we look at all those little factors that we love to do when we're analyzing fights, like grappling, striking, cardio, experience, I just think that Islam Makhachev has way too many things in his favor for Dustin Poirier to win. And I've been rewatching Dustin Poirier fights, and he's not a fighter that is pressuring you. He's not a fighter that is on the front foot. And I feel like that's the kind of style you need to truly beat Islam Makhachev. Because if you're trying to counter strike, if you're defensive, if you have your back up against the fence, you're not going to beat Islam Makhachev. But anyway, guys, I hope you guys enjoyed the video. Please make sure to like and subscribe. Let me know, how do you see Dustin Poirier winning this fight? Look, I don't believe he truly has a chance, man.